Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bryan's Basement. Today we're going to be taking another look at the Genesis Mini 2, going through the games in more depth, getting some more information out there, and we'll probably do a review or a look at my top 3 games on the system. So let's get right into it. Alright, so welcome back to another episode. As I said, we're going to be taking a look at this little baby today. This is the Genesis Mini 2. I did an unboxing for it a little while ago. As you can see, it's pretty small, but it packs a punch. It's got an HDMI port in the back, USB for power, 2 controller ports in front, so it's pretty. I like it so far. I've had some more time to experiment with it since our last encounter or last video. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents about it. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to go through the titles and just kind of, you know, briefly skim over those. So let's start off with that, and then we'll discuss just a brief review of the system, and then we'll kind of touch on what games I was really excited with just from my week with it. So, alright, so just getting started, going down the list, it's got some really unique titles on there. For Genesis, we'll start with Genesis as that's what's on the left-hand side, and readily available. There's the most titles are for Genesis. So there's Afterburner 2, Classic, Alien Soldier. I played that a little bit. I was actually very impressed with that. Atomic Runner, Bonanza Bros, Clay Fighter, Crusader of Senti. That's a good one. I'm really happy they put that on there based on how expensive that game's become. So it's cool to expose that to a new generation of fans. Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf, that's a classic. So Earthworm Jim 2, would prefer the Saturn, but let's save that, table that discussion. Elemental Master, I've never actually played that one. Fatal Fury 2, great fighting game. Gain Ground, classic renovation title. Golden Axe 2, arcade classic. Granada, I believe I messed around with this. You play as like a tank. It's a renovation game. It's pretty cool. Hellfire, good shooter. Herzog Ziwe, I probably botched that pronunciation. I've never actually played that. I believe it's a tank game. Lightning Force, Quest for the Dark Star, a great shooter, a classic. Midnight Resistance, never played that one. Outrun, the Genesis version of Outrun is honestly great. It's a fantastic port, so I'm really happy they put that on there. Outrunners, I've never actually played that. It's a Data East Outrun game, so I'll have to check that out, being that I'm a big fan of Outrun. So, Phantasy Star 2, classic. That's a great game. Happy that's on there. Populous, I think this is a strategy game. I've never actually played it. Rainbow Islands Extra, I believe this is like a Japanese or PAL only release, so it's cool they put that on there. Ranger X, although I have this game, I've never actually played it. You play as like a robot. I know the cover was pretty cool, so that's why I picked it up years ago. Rise Star, great platformer, just classic Sega game that is a bit more on the expensive side now, so I mean, that's definitely, there's definitely some good Genesis titles in here. Rolling Thunder 2, classic Namco action game. Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi, gotta love Shinobi stuff. Shining Force 2, classic strategy RPG. Shining in the Darkness, a good RPG that's not as well known. I've actually never played it, so maybe I'll check it out on here. I'm always down for a new RPG to check out. Sonic 3D Blast. I remember when this came out, and I played it a little bit back then, but I haven't really revisited it, so this is a good opportunity for that. Splatterhouse 2, awesome. I mean, that game is over $100 easily, so that's a good one. Streets of Rage 3, my least favorite of the original trilogy, but still nonetheless pretty good. Losing the Yuzo Koshiro music really kind of hurt me a little bit, so... Okay, so, Super Hang-On, great game, classic, you know, I love Hang-On. I wish there were some better ports of that, but that's already been discussed. But, so, getting to the next titles, Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers, that's a great game, one of the more updated versions of Street Fighter 2, so I can definitely agree with that pick. That's a safe bet. The Ooze, I'm not really sure what that is. The Revenge of Shinobi, I love that game. It's actually one of my favorite Shinobi titles. Toe Jam and Earl in Panicle and Funktron, that's a classic. Toe Jam and Earl's great. Truxton, another shooter. Vectorman 2, I'm a big Vectorman fan. Just something captured. I always liked those games, the 3D-esque looking games from that era, like Donkey Kong Country and stuff. They kind of just like blew my mind. Another one, Viewpoint, not sure about that. Virtua Racing, a very impressive Genesis game. That cartridge was a monster, what they were able to do in that. And Warsong being the last Genesis game. So some interesting titles you've got here to basically here with the Genesis titles, so that's a good amount of titles, and you've got some really rare stuff in there, like Splatterhouse 2, Crusader of Senti, Truxton. I mean, you're looking at an expensive lot of games if you were going to pick these all up for the Genesis, so I really appreciate what they did here. I think they went out of their way to pick some more, you know, esoteric titles. That is, and I appreciate that. I think that's really cool. So thank you, Sega. On to the next list. So what we have here, introducing. So I'm assuming these are the games that basically have new features that have been added. So I haven't explored these that much. They have Davy and Pi, Fantasy Zone, Classic, Squatter, and I need glasses. Space Harrier 2, Star, well, Space Harrier 2, I would like to check that out. I'm a big Space Harrier fan, so I heard they enhanced that. I did actually know about that one. Star Mobile, I'm not sure about that. Super Locomotive, don't know what that is. Probably a locomotive simulator. Versus Puyo Puyo Sun. I'm not sure about that, so I'll have to check out those. I think it's cool that these were given to you. You can see them, they're the titles in red. Apparently there's enhancements that were done to those, so that's interesting. I'm happy they did that. It's kind of cool that they were able to revisit and do something like that, you know, how Nintendo with the Super Nintendo Classic did that with Star Fox 2, so it's always a neat little treat for them to give you something extra with an old game that you really liked. So on to the last column, the Sega CD. This is the stuff that I was honestly the most excited about because I love Sega CD. I think that it gets kind of a bad rap, so I was a big fan, was really excited. That's kind of why I pre-ordered this. So let's take a look at those. So let's go down the line. We've got the Echo the Dolphin and Echo the Tides of Time. I was a big Echo fan growing up. I'll have to go back and maybe give it another shot. I kind of, I don't know. It was one of those games as a kid where you would just play and not really know what was going on, but since it looked cool, it was fun, and I think I might have got it with my Genesis. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research if that was a pack-in or not, but something tells me that it was, because I remember having, that was like one of the few Genesis games that I had. So After the Echoes, Final Fight CD, that's a cool one. That's an early Sega CD title, so I mean it's one of the better Final Fight versions, so that's awesome. And it's expensive, so that's good they put that on there. Mansion of Hidden Souls. This is a pretty, I guess it's relatively common. I kind of see it around, or maybe an uncommon, but not like a relatively rare game. It never struck me as anything that I wanted to check out particularly. I mean, I have it in my collection, but I'm just kind of, I was never, it looked like one of your classic kind of weird Sega CD games, so maybe I'll have to give it a shot, revisit it. Night Striker, this one I never had heard of, and I played it on here, and I couldn't believe I'd never heard of it because it's such a cool game. You're like a car that can fly, and you have to, it's got an awesome like little sci-fi backstory. I'll probably be highlighting that one later, just because it's so interesting, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, Night Striker, awesome. Taito, just back from the days when Taito was just incredible, just nothing, could do no wrong. On to the next one. So Night Trap, I'm sure everyone knows Night Trap. It's not the greatest game, but it's got shock value and, you know, notoriety for creating the ESRB. Robo Alesta, come on now, awesome. I mean, the fact that they put Robo Alesta on there is great, because that's a expensive title, great shooter, awesome Sega CD game, so I'm just happy they put that there. Sewer Shark, I could do without Sewer Shark. I don't know, I guess people like it because it was a pack-in. I always thought it was kind of cheesy, but it's funny. I mean, I like those FMV games for what they are. Next one, Shining Force CD, that's a great one. That is expensive, and it's sought after, and I think more people need to be exposed to the Shining Force games. So it's cool you get to play Shining Force 2 and Shining Force CD on here. So I think that's really great that they gave us that. Sylphid, love Sylphid. Sylphid for the PC-88 is one of the coolest games I've ever played. So putting Sylphid and getting some more love for a game that I think might be kind of looked over on the Sega CD, I'm really all for that. Sonic CD, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, a lot of people really like this version. I played it a tiny bit, but I haven't played it that much, so maybe this will be my opportunity to play it a little bit more. And last but not least, this one really blew my mind that it was on here. I'm so happy. The Ninja Warriors. The Ninja Warriors. I couldn't believe it. A couple videos back, I was talking about how I wanted to play the Sega CD version, and here it is. It's on here. So, what are the chances? What a great pleasant surprise. So, alright, well, that went a little bit longer than expected. So, I'm going to cut that, put that video out, and then in the next video, we'll take a look at a couple of the titles on the system. Maybe about 3 or 4 that I was interested in. 2 Sega CDs, 2 Genesis. Alright, thank you.